Obviously, the laptop. Okay. Now, well, it all depends. Like if I've got a check translate on, I can pull the code by using the touch arrows. 1, 2, and it tells me I've got a code. C2793. Now that should show up here. So I open up the software. I go over here to F4 Connect. I make sure for us here at OC, I make sure that box isn't checked because Smart Connect never works, at least for us. I come over here, I hit Connect. Make sure that my device is the one I'm using. I hit Connect, and it tells me it won't connect. That's great.
And this is on the back of the bus, right?
This will be behind the driver's head. It's on. Okay. Restart. Retry. I knew that was going to happen. That's all right.
So in order for you to get this one, you should press and pull them together?
Yep. Push it twice. 1, 2. And it just reads out D1.
You don't have to have it neutral for that to read it?
No. I just have to have it powered up. But I can put it neutral. I'll hit connect.
They said it's easier though.
God, this is why I hate it.
I thought I were Cheetos.
Yeah, it just gives me nothing but grief, man. So I'm going to restart this thing. If not, we'll go on with our lesson because I don't have time to waste if this thing's not going to cooperate, which is kind of unfortunate.
Just to see, just to get it to
Well, this is an 8.9, Dodge is a 5.9, but yeah, it would be similar to this.
Yeah, I've seen this before. Roger.
Could have been pointing at.
Well, yeah, it has history. I got yeah. That was the best picture.
Let's have to make roll.
I don't know why this thing isn't working, to be honest with you guys. I'm going to try and connect again. I don't, no, it's powered up. It doesn't need to be turned on. I might have to. I got a freaking laptop that doesn't want to connect. Alright, so you know what we're going to do?
Up here.
all the fumes and the gas and all that.
See your adapter?
We're probably sneaky oil. See them?
Oh, you know what that car is? Condensation. You know,
Condensation, okay.
inside the exhaust. I don't think it's a real tight seal. So it's leaking.
Not really. I mean, this is what my guys run into all the time. The problem is not the transmission. It's trying to get this damn laptop to talk to
That, that's in the middle of the contacts.
Give me one more minute and I'll go get another computer.
Sound like my son. He's always like, it's giving you a hard time, Dad. Let's just go take a break. Let's go get some Starbucks. Like, all right, cool. If you're buying, let's go.
How old is your son?
16. And he's already freaking taller than me too. I'm like, man, what's in the chicken?
My son's taller than me too.
Yeah?
6'4".
Well, it doesn't take much to be taller than me, so. But it works for working on buses. All the tall guys in the shop used to make fun. You can't reach that because it's on the top shelf. Yes, but when you have to get down in the engine compartment, I go home and my back's not hurt.
Alright, I'm gonna go get another laptop. I'm tired of playing with this piece of crap. I'll be right back.
You got another adapter too, Mike?
No, right there.
I know. It's always that though. That's how it's pissed because it's always that. It's like you're just trying to figure out an issue with a bus or something, and it's like the software is so freaking complicated with how it has to connect. You get one little thing wrong and you're like, yeah.
It's a small.
Well,
So
I
when you
think
fire
because it's
on the
in
East
here,
Coast,
they have to.
one time I went to
maybe-
Massachusetts, UMass, the University of Massachusetts.
Is it
to fix a
that,
couple
is it
buses.
that small?
And so when I was out there, I discovered a programming issue that was causing an intermittent light to come up on the dash. They said, oh, reprogram the whole fleet. They were like, since you're out there, just stay out there. So they got me a hotel, and for a whole freaking week, I was out there just programming day till night, just hooking up the laptop to all these buses and reprogramming every single one of them.
Yeah, that was okay. The engine.
God, that was probably about $112.
You actually have these
A little over
gauges that
110
wire the
bucks.
bus to further, no, you
In a
don't.
day, how many?
So do you have to go on the computer?
I could do, well, it depends, because if I had issues, a lot of times, we had that same blue Mexic box, and we would always have issues with that shit, you know? But I could probably do like 8 to 10 in a day. And they finally got me another guy to help.
It's a tough smoke.
Okay.
I think the problem is we have way too many programs loaded onto this thing.
How
And
old are the computers?
these computers are not that old. This is an i5, so it's relatively recent. This is a 1980. Yeah, no, they're
It's working on the DOS program.
I saw your adapter,
well.
briefly.
I'm not a big fan of these because they frustrate mechanics.
Yeah,
They get out on the floor and says, oh, I can't connect because, and then we got to call somebody down to go in and flip a switch internally and turn something on that shouldn't have been turned off.
Yeah.
Because somebody gets in here and starts horsing around with it because they got nothing better to do.
Yep.
And it ends up getting all fouled up. But,
Couple settings.
yeah, and that's what was wrong with that other one. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah,
And I'm not the computer guy.
yeah.
In fact, I hate computers. My wife's like, well, why don't you go and get out? Because I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm right there
I
with
spend
you.
all day on the computer at work.
Yeah,
I don't want to dick with one at home.
Yeah.
I just don't like them.
yep.
And so as you can tell, while this thing's thinking about waking up today, we have our program, or our gauges. So everybody stand clear, hands free. Now, if I were to put my gauges on and I'm looking for a problem, this is exactly what you would see. I've got main pressure and my C5 clutch engaged. Okay?
Wait, can you repeat that?
I've got main pressure and my C5 clutch is engaged. When I go to reverse, watch my C3 clutch. C3 and C5.
It's a crazy little dance. Like 3 or 4 things that I have at the same time.
Usted smoke.
Pretty cool.
Oh yeah, you just can't see it completely.
Connect right there. So you have one connected,
So it's going to, all this but I'm sure there's a little bit coming in here, because this chance is just
But it's like it's mechanics that abuse it too. Like the connection, the little square USB where it goes in, it breaks inside there a lot. But they don't take care of them. They wrap them up so tight, they shove them in a drawer. And then there's the same ones that are mad when it doesn't work. It's like, take care of your tools because that's your bread and butter. You know? Like quarterly, when I was a mechanic for Volvo, I would go in on a Saturday in the morning really early. I had access to the shop, so I would take all my drawers out of my toolbox. I would take everything out, clean all my tools, reorganize, clean up my toolbox, clean the outside, and boom. And when I came back on Monday, it was like, you know when you go home and you clean your house?
Yeah, you feel lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, same feeling.
No, next time I think that most of the guys do have OCD or I think that should be a prerequisite for me. A little bit of OCD.
One of them is for transit data and the other is from Wi-Fi, right?
You're working on
Data and Wi-Fi, right?
It's not normally this thing, ambulance transmission.
No, with transit, it's kind of a different world from most, like, you know, much, especially like, why you have to get FEMA monitoring, because you got so much government regulation when it comes to like for instance, leak check is like a whole thing that has to be like lifelong, it's not no, basically making sure that so if the different thing is like down the road and it's leaking and we don't capture it, like that. And the side effect is
Alright. If we were to connect, this is why I like manual. I can connect to this. Now, so I pull up my code. And it gives me a code. Now the other thing I can do with this, if I wanted to check my clutch pressures individually, because when I just put it drive and let it shift, it goes too quick. So what I can do, I arrowed it down to 2, so it's only going to shift into seconds. So I'm in drive, I got C5 and C1. Now I can throttle up to 2. individual clutch pressures to see if I had a problem. I would find a straightaway, put it in drive, arrow it to 2, but while he's driving it, I'm going to be having to arrow it to 3, look at my gauges, arrow it up to 4, look at my gauges, arrow it up to 5 and 6. That way I can physically see what the pressures are. Because if I just do it now, it's going to go through it so fast, you're not going to be able to see it. Now this doesn't downshift like your bus because there's no load on that driveline. Okay. Now, so I got a code P2793. Now, if my effing laptop would have connected, I could have pulled that up, double-clicked on the code, and it would come up with exactly what you see in the manual. Because the trouble manual is actually stored on Allison, not the laptop. It's actually stored on the transmission controller. So I double-click it, and it comes up with troubleshooting trees to troubleshoot this. Okay, I just happen to have a manual, and these tabs are from the stuff when I was trying to find that splice. I tabbed the manual, and I actually went through the manual because it's easier for me to have it back here on my toolbox when I'm going through various troubleshooting trees instead of trying to read the laptop and have the laptop sitting around. It's easier to view it this way. Because that laptop is clunky, I have to arrow it down, and if I go too far, it jumps to another code, and it can get a bit frustrating. You already know I hate laptops enough. I just need another reason to hate them, and that's it. So let's go back here. Yes, it will go D1, read a code, D2, read a code, D3, read a code. This one only has the one code because it's simply displayed. You can Yep. No, your buses I don't think go past. I don't think. Okay, now, this is log and active code. The LED's on and log is 0703. I know it's active because my red LED is on. Okay, so let's take a look at that. 703. Okay. So what we'll do this is our breakout box. So what I'll have you guys do so what this allows me to do is instead of pulling off my 80-pin connector back here and trying to read which pin's number 1 and which pin's number 69 and which pin's 80, I can install this time. gently remove it. This goes into here. It does. Now you don't need to get super crazy on these securement. I just want it in there so it's not going to slide out. It's just from time to time. And you have to be gentle with these connections. They're fragile. Very fragile, right? They can be a bit persnickety. So now that I'm totally in to my circuit. Okay. Now let's hold that for me while I open this up. Get my handy dandy little. And now we are all set to start troubleshooting this thing. So I've got the P2793 code looked up in my book, and it tells me everything I need to know about this. It says the trans light illuminates as stored code. TCM ignores pulse width modulated signals from the shift selector. Okay, so it's going to ignore the selector if this code is active, and we know it would have been active if this code was displayed and that red LED is on. Then it tells me what I'm going to need to fix it. It says conditions for clearing the code. Service tool can be used to clear the code from the TCM history. The TCM automatically clears this code from its memory if the vehicle completes 40 cycles of firing it up and shutting it down. Okay. Now, if it's active, you're not clearing it. You can hit clear code all you want if it makes you feel good, and the light will go out for a while and then it'll come back on. That means you have to fix this thing. Okay. If you continue reading, and this is the same data that would be on that laptop when you double-click the code. Okay. And one of the first things it says is inspect the harness. Inspect pulse width modulated signal wire 134 for poor electrical connections. Okay. And this is an interesting one because it tells you the pulse width signal characteristics are shown in the table. So when the vehicle is equipped with a primary and secondary shift selector, it tells you what frequency the selector is working at. And you can check that if you had a meter that could read frequencies, and most of our modern flukes do. In fact, this is an older fluke that I just grabbed. It's my own that I throw in here because a lot of times it's hard to get one out of parts. And so you come in here to your troubleshooting trees, and I love these things. Step 1 was section 3.5, the beginning of troubleshooting performed. Yep, okay. Go to step 2. Turn the ignition off, disconnect the 80-way connector at the transmission control module, connect the OEM 80-way connector to the breakout box, the bus. Now we're checking the bus side of the house, not the transmission yet. We're checking the connector from the bus body in my breakout box. Okay? It says disconnect the shift selectors. Inspect wire 134 between the transmission control module and the shift selector. So they're asking me to disconnect my shift selector and inspect the wire. Okay? So this one has a funky little locking mechanism on it. Trying to figure out how this works because I've never done this before. inspect wire 134. And it, sometimes they're numbered, sometimes they're not. And these are some very fragile wires. So what I would do, and I might have to pull up the schematics for it, but I would look in the manual and see if it showed me a picture of that shift selector on which wire is 134. And it does not. So I would have to go in the schematics, look in the schematics, and figure out which pin is for 134. But looking at the pins, I can see that they're all in, not pushed out of the harness, and they all appear to be
In good
in good condition, not rusty, not bent, not broken, not subject to moisture. Because a lot of times these shift selectors get, liquid spilled on them, or sometimes when it's raining and the side window's open, they get a pretty good bath. Okay? So right away I look at that, I look at the pins on my connector, on my housing. They're not bent, broken, twisted, or otherwise damaged. So I've got a pretty good picture here that this is okay. Put it back in, put my lock back in. That's a crazy move. Okay? See, now we know how to pull those bad bears apart. So it asks me if everything is okay, go to step 4. So I go to step 4. Step 4, yeah. Or if everything's not okay, go to step 3. So let's just go in order. So verify ignition's on, reconnect the transmission control module and the 80-pin connector, disconnect the shift selector if not disconnected already. Using a digital multimeter, test for continuity between pin 5 and the OEM shift selector connector and ground. So I would have this disconnected, pin 5, I would back probe this with my meter. Not sure what pin 5 is, but we'll find one to see if there's ground. So we get the old meter up. So I'm going to look at the OEM shift connector, which is this guy, and I'm going to look for ground. So what would I set my meter on if I'm looking for ground? I'm looking for continuity. Anybody remember? Is it set?
The last one.
Yeah, yeah. That's diode, but that's ohms. So would I want to check for ohms? I certainly don't need voltage, millivolts, DC or AC. I'm looking for continuity, so I'm going to check for ohms. I'm going to zero this bad bear. It's reading mega ohms. So I'm going to find a megabit down that way. Mike's going to hold that for me. Now, what I see people do that gets them in trouble is they jam these things into the connectors and spread the connectors apart, and they just built in an intermittent problem. So I didn't bring my paper because these leads are different. I didn't bring a paper clip. Okay, brought my infamous jumper wire. So I need a ground.
Give me your paper clip.
I'm just trying to figure out a nice ground I can use. I gotta find a ground here. Hold that on the hole. Yeah, hold that on the hole. So we go through our different pockets until I find one that shows me ground. There we go. I've got ground. So that must be pin 5. Now I would obviously verify that in the schematics to make sure. But I'm reading continuity, so that's part of my first troubleshooting step. Okay? So we have continuity. Okay? So we'll set this here, we'll see what else it says to do. So, were any wiring defects found? No. Go to step 4. Okay? Oh, this isn't good. If the vehicle OEM harness is responsible for the external wiring, it says coordinate with the vehicle OCM and repair or replace the vehicle wiring. Okay? So that's, wow, okay, so that's pretty cut and dry. But if we would have had a yes answer on that from step 3, then we would have gone to step 5. Disconnect the shift connector, turn it on, leave the ignition off, turn on the ignition, leave the engine off, using the DVOM, set the DVOM to measure the voltage on pin 11. Okay? So we would disconnect the shift selector, and I don't know what pin 11 is, but let's see what we can find. Turn on the key, but do not start it. Right, because I got it back here. Now we get to listen to that annoying buzzer. Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Sure. We don't hear my annoying buzzer. Alright. And now I'm going to check for voltage at pin 11. So where would I set my meter?
DC.
Volts DC, right? And I need a ground.
Same ground.
Sure, why not? Now, kind of hard to see here. And I got 10 volts. 10 volts? Yeah. So I have voltage, probably not a lot. So I hit pin 11 right off. So you walk yourself through these things. Okay, so we're on step 5, using DVOM, set volt to measure voltage on pin 11. Is there voltage within range? Yes, go to step 7, and it said 0.45 or more. So then I go to step 7. So you see how this walks you through it? Yeah. Now what was that other code? Let's connect this. This is not a great code. Check. That other one was 0907, right? This is not going to be my day. That was it. Let me go back to its original configuration. Yeah, I just need about 3/8. Can't be the channel locked. It's this area. Like I say, you don't have to get super crazy with tightening these things up or go. It can. You can do that. And then it gives you all kinds of problems.
Just so it doesn't go, once it's connected, it just
Keeps it from wiggling loose.
so in the bus they have to straight lock.
Yeah, this is the bus. This is located on top of our battery box. Really easy to get to. Makes it kind of nice.
Without the computer.
No, unfortunately, we don't have the gauges. Yeah, so it's gone. Sometimes it just needs a little attention, you know, kind of like your dog. All right. 90, what is that? 0703, is that what that code is? 0703. Oh, goodness. All right. Oh, I recognize that number. Oh, I hope that's not what I think it's going to be. Oh, this is a fun one.
But what you're doing right here,
What I'm doing right
you would see it on the computer.
Yep. If this code came up in the, so you'd go onto the computer, you'd see fault codes. You'd click that icon and it would display the fault codes. You double click the fault codes and it
shows
comes
you the
up with the
steps.
same stuff that I'm reading here. The nice thing about the manual that I like, and again, I'm not on the floor often, is if I can't get to the laptop to see my troubleshooting because it's out of the way, if I've got the book there, or what I do is I generally make copies of it so the book doesn't get all nasty. And I take it with me and I bring the paperwork with me and I start troubleshooting with the paperwork. Because a lot of times you'll have the laptop connected and when you're troubleshooting out back, you can't see the laptop or if the laptop's in the damn way. And my favorite is you're halfway through it and it powers down or it's interrupted and it goes away and then you're halfway through it and you got to boot everything back up. As you can tell, I'm not a big fan of laptops. Okay, so what you see here is what you have stored, and all this data is stored in here, not the laptop. It's stored actually in the transmission control module. Okay, so now this one, brake switch circuit malfunction. Remember when we talked about the retarder, it uses the brake switch to activate the retarder if the TPS doesn't go to idle. It says, hey, I don't see idle, but it sees on the brake. So either you're one of those two-footed drivers or you're slowing down. So it would use this switch to turn on the retarder. So our code, and it's not one I planted, so this is good, I think, is we got a malfunctioning brake switch. Now, the nice thing about the paperwork is it tells you everything that happens to the bus when the code becomes active. Okay. Transmission control module does not illuminate the check trans light. So you're like, okay. So I don't get a check trans light, which for you guys is good. It's stored in the memory. It inhibits neutral to drive shifts for refuge packer. So if I've got a trash truck, I'm not going in to drive. Because apparently, just from reading that, it looks for the foot to be on the brake before the bus can go, or the trash truck can go into gear. Okay. Now, some transit agencies may have theirs set up that way. Foot has to be on the brake before we go into gear. Okay. What do I do to clear this thing? Using the service tool, you can try and clear it if it's inactive. Ours is not. The red mode light is on, so we know it's active. Diagnostic aids. When analog input wires are used to service brake switch, input is active when pressure switch is closed. Okay? That's when it's hardwired into the ECM. If it's not hardwired, it will send a CAN message to the vehicle's multiplexing system, which will then relay it to Allison that the service brake is applied. Kind of a roundabout method, but it uses a CAN network, and you don't hardwire it from wherever it is physically into the ECM. PCM. Now we can still check it. The code indicates the transmission control module has detected service brake status on for 3 seconds during an acceleration event. So your foot's on the brake while you're accelerating. That's what it thinks. So it did exactly what you did. Wait a minute, that's not right. Or if you're a two-footed driver, you're telling it that's what you're trying to do. Okay? So the service brake status must be off for acceleration and deceleration events. Makes sense. Possible causes: faulty wiring, faulty connections, faulty service brake switch, another controller improperly broadcasting on the network. In other words, the setup. Inspect wiring connectors to prevent broken pins. Test description. So it gives you an overview of what you're going to do. Test for an active diagnostic code, we know that. The test for a status of an analog input on wire 162, we'll do that. Test for shorts to ground, opens, and test for proper service brake switch function. So how do we do that? Well, it says install the service tool, which we tried, but it doesn't want to cooperate today because it's Monday. Must be a union computer. Right? Clear the diagnostic trouble code and drive the vehicle. Attempt to duplicate the same operating conditions observed when it failed. Sounds like fun. So we got to go on a road test. So we're going to clear the code. If it's active, we don't need to do this step. It's already there. Okay. Inspect the vehicle for analog wire input. Okay, go to step 4. Turn on the ignition. If I had my laptop up and running, I would cue the data list. The data list would simply give me a list of all the functions the computer's doing. And I would simply step on the service brake and see if the computer reflected that it came on and went off. Or I would pull up the data list, I would look for service brake status switch without touching it. If it's on, we have a problem. Y'all follow me? Okay. Does wire 162 go on when brake pedal is depressed and go off when the brake pedal is released? Yes. Go to step 5. No. Go straight to step 6. Turn off the ignition. Disconnect the 80-way connector. Install the OEM side of the 80-way connector to the breakout box. All right, well, let's do that. We're going to turn it off. We're going to power it down. I'm going to put my 80-way, and all it told me to do was connect it to this OEM or original equipment. That means the bus body. That means New Flyers into the house, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my 80-way guy, and I'm simply going to connect it to here. Get the pliers, it won't fit. And I can run this down a little bit just to keep it from disconnecting during the test. Okay. And it says, where am I at? I'm on step 6. Put the I got these little, oh, it's already on there, okay. I've got these little templates. It'll tell me to use one or the other template. So this template, and then the other one here, J47, these are magnetic. So it says put this template on here, and you notice it goes up to 80. So it's got all the pin numbers for my main connector. So I throw that bad. You remember those Play-Doh forms when you were a kid that had a little magnet? You know, you put the, that's kind of what it is. These are some stout magnets too, let me tell you. All right, so you got that there. Now this one, if you look at it, that's checking the 20 pin. That's checking the transmission harness. You pass it around. But I want it back. It's got low jack on it. Yeah, it's that microscopic version. All right. So it says, check for short to ground on wire 162. So how do we do that? So we go over here. Wire 162 is going to be pin 62 in the 80 way. I'm seeing that right here. It says wire 162, so it gives you a little schematic. It also tells me if I don't have a breakout box, it tells me the pin locations on the 80 way connector. So if I don't have the breakout box, I can locate pin 62 here and check it going to ground. So with the breakout box, 62, so I take my meter, I go to pin 62, which is right here, 62.